So like as a sculpture, which they very much look like when they're stationary, people interact with them very differently to when they're a performance. And so there was something really nice and playful about that. Like, when does a sculpture stop being a sculpture and become a performance? My name's Ashley Peevor. I work as an artist. The main project that I'm working on, sculptures which are costumes. I originally was a fashion designer when I first left college, and I found it quite limiting when I was far more interested in like pushing ideas and seeing how far you could take something. I was really fascinated with mythology. And in mythology, there's always been this symbol of nature, like this human figure, this kind of like symbol that can be used in the story, in the storytelling. I find it really interesting that we don't seem to have this sort of like figure anymore in contemporary culture, this sort of like person for us to be able to understand our relationship with nature. And so I started playing along with that theme, and then I also quite like the idea from my fashion background of being able to produce something that could be worn and also be a livable thing. So it kind of illustrates this relationship between like the person who wears it and the sculptural garden as an object. So I applied for a project which was extraordinary, which is run by Eyeview, and I was really interested in how the project was working across 3 different towns in Torbay and how it was involving different communities, and all the towns were very different. And I like this idea of the work that I could produce in each town would be very different. And that sort of linked into how we produced the project. So I've got 2 groups, one in Torquay and one in Brixham. And they're both going to develop and grow their own heads. So they've designed them, and then they're going to grow them, and they get to pick the flowers that they want to use. And we'll see if it will work on the final performances that we do. And we're going to bring those heads and the rest of the body, which I'm going to make, and we're going to create these absurd performances. They will also control how the performers move, the body language, how they interact with the audiences. So we're hoping that both of these 2 different groups who don't see each other will make 2 very different types of living costumes. I like to think the performance is really absurd. So at first you don't really understand what's going on. I find that a lot of adults really sort of turn into children around it. I've seen 75-year-old women hug and chase the grassmen down to really get like a nice good breath of nature. And there's something about that. There's something about when it comes to you, that tactile quality of it, and the smell is really important. You know, there's no smell like nature, and it just really transcends everything else. Transcends other types of costumes. But then equally, it is quite an artificial experience, and it kind of talks a lot about the way in which we interact with nature and the need for the spectacle nowadays.